Hello and welcome to Reading Matthew in Lent. Today is Monday, March 8th, and as you may have noticed, I did not get the video out there this morning at 8 o'clock. I had church services at both churches yesterday, and I got home last night, and I kind of forgot about it. And this morning I had to run up to the MMC for some tests to be done, and I got into the office this morning about 10:30, quarter to 11, and I went, oh man, I forgot to do that. So I'm here now to share with you chapter 11 of Matthew's Gospel in our series. Saturday we did chapter 13, which was a long one, and it was full of parables. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parables? Yeah. Plus Jesus being rejected in his hometown. All kinds of stuff going on there. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to jump right into chapter 14 so we can read that and I can get it posted out there for you guys to look at. And again, sorry for the delay. Tomorrow's will definitely be on time. So, chapter 14 is, the starting section is entitled, The Death of John the Baptist. It says, at that time Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, this is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him. For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had been saying to him, it is not lawful for you to have her. And though he wanted to put him to death, he feared the people, because they held him to be a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced for him before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter. And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guest, he commanded it to be given. He sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and they went and told Jesus. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away and go into the villages and buy food, so they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus said, they need not go away. You give them something to eat. They said to him, we have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish. And he said, bring them here to me. Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to his disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, it is a ghost. And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, and he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, Truly you are the Son of God. And when they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent all around to all the region and brought him all who were sick and implored him that they might only touch the fringe of his garment. And as many as touched it were made well. So 14 is a little shorter. Couple of interesting things. We hear about the death of John the Baptist. We know that Herod didn't really want to kill him, but he kind of backed himself into a corner. And then we see Jesus. He was upset about the death of John. He withdraws, and the people follow him. And then he heals the people. And I love this. He says he saw the great crowd, and he had compassion on them. You know, that's one of the phrases that you see often used in regards to Christ, is that he had compassion. He had compassion on them. He still has compassion on us. And then comes the feeding of the 5,000. You know, the disciples are going, hey, get these guys out of here, send them to the nearest towns. And certainly even the little towns around probably didn't have enough food to feed that many people. And Jesus says, nah, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. A little test time for the disciples. And what did they say? We've only got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And it's interesting, Matthew doesn't tell us. I think it's in Luke's gospel. It tells us where those fish came from. You know, that was a lunch packed by a mom for a little boy. And he graciously shared his lunch, and it allowed Jesus to take care of that. Yeah. And, you know, and what does he do? When they're done, they pick up 12 baskets of leftover. There's a message for the disciples. 1 leftover basket for each of you who doubted that we could feed this crowd. And then we see Jesus walking on the water. He said he immediately made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And the general feeling is, and I think it's even mentioned in either Luke or Mark, that they were, the crowd and even the disciples, because of the miracle that Jesus had done, that they felt that they were going to carry him to Jerusalem and crown him king, and he knew that wasn't going to happen or shouldn't happen, and that's why he sent the disciples away, and then he dismissed the crowd. We don't know what he told the crowd, but he did indeed get the crowd to leave. Then he went up on the mountain to pray, and while he's praying, the wind comes up, the boat's being tossed about, they're stuck out in the middle, beating into the seas. And about the 4th watch, which would be sometime between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., Jesus comes walking by. I think his intention was to walk past. It doesn't say that he was necessarily going to the boat, but they see him. And when they saw him, what does it say? They were terrified. It's a ghost! And they cried out. Immediately Jesus says, Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. There's some words to remember, right? Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. Then Peter says, Peter says, hey, if it is you, you just tell me to get on the water and walk out to you. And Jesus, one word, come. Peter gets out of the boat, walks across the water to Jesus. Well, he gets there, and guess what? He starts to second guess himself. He sees the wind, he sees the waves, he begins to sink. And what does he say? Words that all of us may have said at one time or another. Lord, save me. And then Jesus looks at him, takes a hold of his hand, raises him out of the water. Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? There's some words for us to remember too when we're doubting, when we're not sure, when we're sinking. We need to know and believe and understand that Jesus is reaching out his hand and he's reminding us, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? And then he stops the wind, the storm ceases, truly you are the Son of God. And then they land in Gennesaret. They see who it is. They recognize Jesus. They bring all of the sick people to him from the whole area. And they say, all we need to do is touch your garment and we'll be healed. And it says, as many as touched it were made well. So, anyway, that ends chapter 14. Tomorrow we'll pick up with chapter 15. And Jesus, once again, continues with his teaching ministry. He's going to talk about traditions and commandments. He's going to talk about what defiles a person. He's going to talk about the faith of the Canaanite woman. And he's going to do the second feeding, the feeding of the 4,000 this time. So, please join me tomorrow. I promise it'll be out there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, so that you don't have to wait for it like you did today. Sorry about that. And if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or anything like that, please let me know. And I hope to see you all again real soon. I just saw a thing a few minutes ago from the CDC, came out with some new guidelines that those who have been vaccinated and who are 2 weeks or more out from the vaccination can gather together without masks and without social distancing. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. I know lots and lots of people now who have received, if not one, but both of their vaccines. And I think now that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is out there and a lot of people only need one shot with that, these numbers are going to continue to rise. And I think we'll be doing real well. So I'm hoping that if you are after your vaccine, that you're having success, and that it's going well for you. I know I got a little ill for a day and a half after the second one, but I guess I take that, as a small price to pay. But well, thanks again for joining me today. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Be happy, be healthy, be kind, be faithful, be loving, be giving, be neighborly, be cheerful. And, as I always try to remember, be ever watchful for the return of our Lord. Once again, thanks for joining me today. I do hope you're having a great day. And I hope to see you all again in person real soon. God bless.